हरि ओम। वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste friends. Welcome to the session 27 of new series Gift, Gita for Inner Freedom and Transformation, a study of selected verses from Bhagavad Gita based on Shankar Bhashya. In today's session, we are continuing with our study of 6th chapter called Dhyana Yoga. We will take up verses from 6.23 to 6.27 for our study. Dr. Divakar, Sri Shivakumari Adalam, Dr. Ashwini, Colonel Vijayan, and Dr. Sheila are going to help us in our efforts. Dr. Ravi Shankar sir will moderate the session and bring in the final points. Over to you, Ravi Shankar sir.
Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Dhyana Yoga. It seems to be addressed to the mental sannyasi. We are learning dhyana, but Shankaracharya says that Krishna's intention cannot be to explain Jnana Karma Samuchaya. The various stages of Vedantic meditation, Bahiranga Sadhana, Antaranga Sadhana, Dhyana Swarupa, and Dhyana Phalam, is taken up again and again at different levels. Nirvikalpaka Samadhi. The explanation of this phrase and its definition comes from this 20th verse and will be explained later. But the peculiar description is the Viparita Lakshana, which we see in the 23rd verse. The gist of some of the things that we are going to understand in this session would be that Jivatma Paramatma Yoga. We know that Jivatma and Paramatma are the same, and it's not something far away that we try to attain. But to have a better understanding, Jivatma Paramatma Yoga is Jivatma Anatma Viyogaha. From the Paramarthic angle, it looks like union. But from the Anatma angle, yoga here means separating or distancing from Anatma. This is the 7th definition of Samadhi, Anatma Dukkha Viyogaha. And that is Nididhyasana. This has been explained as neighborization by Swami Paramarthanandaji and objectification by Swami Dayanandaji. So the Samadhi Abhyasa Swarupa Nididhyasanam is explained here, and it is a very prolonged effort. May I now request Dr. Divakar Gautam to kindly explain the 23rd verse of Dhyana Yoga.
Thank you, sir. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. So as you have already given a brief description of the chapter 6, let's quickly recap on what are the subject matters which are covered in the Atma Samyama Yoga. Atma Samyama Yoga or Dhyana Yoga. So what kind of dhyana is emphasized here? It is very, very clear from the teachings and also beautifully explained by Swami Paramarthanandaji. The dhyana here refers to Vedantic dhyana or Vedantic meditation, which is also called as Nididhyasana. Just briefly, what is the difference between Upasana and Nididhyasanam? Before acquiring the knowledge of the Brahman or the Atma, before acquiring the self-knowledge, if one is doing a meditation, it is called as Upasanam. And after acquiring the knowledge, if one is doing the meditation, it is called as Nididhyasanam. So for somebody who has done Upasana thoroughly, then Nididhyasanam is a cakewalk. Just by the Shravanam, listening to Guru, going through the scriptures systematically, will have a complete ananda, and they will anchor to that knowledge for a long time. Whereas if somebody is taking a shortcut, in a way, most of us fall in this second category because we have not had the prerequisite sadhanas thoroughly done, both karma yoga and upasana yoga. For these sadhakas, nididhyasanam is extremely important. So the subject matters which are covered in this chapter are nididhyasana bahiranga sadhana, which is the general disciplines, and they were already discussed. And here, along with karma yoga, self-confidence, uddharet atmanatmanam, self-control and moderation is emphasized. And the second topic is antaranga sadhanas, the specific disciplines. This again range of topics which are covered, where to sit down when we are doing a meditation, timing, seating, posture, sense control, and then how to focus on the object of the meditation, etc. All of them are discussed. Then dhyana swarupa, nididhyasana swarupa. In this, three topics: dharana, which is focusing on the object of meditation; retaining the object of meditation, also called as dhyana; and then the samadhi, which is engrossing and getting oneself engrossed or absorbed in the object of meditation. In this case, object of meditation is the self, atma itself. And then the subsequent topics which will be discussed are nididhyasana phalam, what is the benefit of this nididhyasanam, and also the obstacles and its remedies for this meditation is covered. And also as a side topic, yoga brashta topic is also covered in the 6th chapter. Next slide, sir. So we've already seen different stages or different definitions of samadhi from starting from the verse 20. So what are they? The first one is this chitta uparamanam. Here the mind subsides. One has gone through all the different stages of Ashtanga Yoga and come till the samadhi. So here the mind is already subsided and one is able to focus on the object of the meditation. So here, one of the definitions of samadhi, there are several definitions. Samadhi yasmin saha. So one who has a tranquil mind. Dhi is intellect. Intellect is thoroughly under control. So with the withdrawal of all the sense organs from the sense objects, one is able to focus better. In the second definition, Visa Atma Dharshanam, only with that one is able to own up to one's own higher nature. The third definition is Atyantika Sukham. Because one is anchoring to one's higher nature, he enjoys the limitless Ananda. This is born out of knowledge. It is important to understand this, and also explained beautifully in the Shankara Bhashyam. Here, Ananda equates to knowledge, Gnanam. It is not an experience. It is not a sense organ based experience. It is not an experience in the mind itself. The knowledge that Atma is Ananta, that itself gives a limitless Ananda. And then the fourth one is the Tattva Nishta. And after discovering this, one is established in this knowledge. And then the Atyantika Labha, what is that? Again, feeling Purnam, Purnatvam. Again, that feeling again is not something which happens in the mind. It is dissociation of oneself from the body mind. In a way, they're going back to their natural state. Then the Atyantika Dukkha Nivritti is the sixth one, which means dissociating oneself from all sorrows. And the last one is the Dukkha Samyoga Viyoga, stage when a person is no more identifies with the gains of the Anatma, and which is what is explained in the verse 23. Next slide, sir. Tam Vidyat Dukkha Samyoga Viyogam Yoga Sangnitam Sanischayena Yoktavyo Yoga Nivrinna Chetasa. Next slide. So here, if we looked at the previous definitions, the third definition was Atyantika Sukham. So here, Krishna wants to clarify that this Atyantika Sukham, which is what? Infinite bliss. Infinite bliss is experienced is what is told, and Krishna wants to clarify this further, and therefore the seventh definition or the stage is brought about here. So here the experience is not born out from the sense organs or the mind. That is what Krishna wants to say in this particular definition. As experience of anything, Ananda is born out of the mind. Bliss is also born out of the mind. Therefore, it is transient. Let us say if somebody is sitting for a meditation and they say that I have experienced Atma, I have experienced Brahmananda, then clearly it is not Brahmananda. because by definition it can't be experienced, Brahman can't be experienced. In a way, we are objectifying the subject. And Swamiji explains this clearly and states that if somebody is saying, I have felt this, and it is clearly not Brahmananda, perhaps they have gone till the highest form of the Sukshma Sharira, which is Hiranyagarbha, but definitely not Brahmananda. That is what is emphasized here. Samadhi Ananda is something, if somebody thinks that it is arriving and then going away, then it is not a true definition. Then it is also temporary. It is not a mysticism, and one shouldn't seek for this. Infinite Ananda is not subject for any arrival and departure because it is our very nature itself. Then how do we identify or how do we get this infinite Ananda? It is just by removing the superimposed sorrow, by removing the superimposition of the anatma on the atma. For example, if we mistake a rope as a snake in a twilight, because we have mistaken that as a snake, there is a snake superimposition on the rope, we are feeling very, very anxious, scared. And when the knowledge arrives, when we switch on the light, then the superimposition goes away and we are back to our original state. There is no more, feelings of anxiety. Exactly like that. The superimposition of the anatma on the atma has to go away with the knowledge. And that is what is emphasized here as viyoga, that we will see actually in the next slide. Just like how a doctor, so go back to the previous slides. So just like how a doctor also removes the diseases, he is not actually giving the health. We already had the health. In Sanskritam, the word used for health is swastaha. Swastha, ಏನಪ್ಪ ನಿಮ್ ಸ್ವಾಸ್ಥ್ಯ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆಯಾ is also told in Kannada. So swastha is our natural, it is called as, it is natural, the very meaning is natural. It is already there. What is the doctor doing? There is a superimposition of a disease or an illness, and doctor is removing that and letting you to be who you are. Doctor is not actually giving the health. Exactly like that, it is expressed here. So sorrow is acquired, but bliss is what we have naturally. So samadhi is remaining in that natural state of purnatvam by removing the dukkha samyoga viyogam. That is explained in the next verse. Next slide, sir. So here, as Dr. Ravi Shankar has already mentioned, the opposite meaning is taken. Instead of yoga, viyoga is taken. And this is called as viparita lakshanam, just like sarcasm, really. So opposite meaning is given. Instead of yoga, viyoga of the anatma is taken. So union, if we look at the example of the wave and the ocean, there are two things that we can look at it, either from a Dvaita Bhava or a Dvaita Bhava. If we say that I am an inferior wave, whereas the ocean is superior, it is the Dvaita Bhava, and it is full of, anxieties or happiness, etc. But if we identify with the water alone, then there is no difference between the wave and the ocean. So what is the Viyoga and Yoga here? Yoga is identification with the water, whereas Viyoga is identification, getting away from the identification of the ocean and the wave. So here, where is the dissociation happening? It is again happening at a mind level only, through intellect only. Ocean will remain as ocean, wave will remain as wave, but the attitude and what is that we are looking at depends on how we look at the ocean and the wave, whether we look at the wave alone or wave and ocean alone or water alone is through the knowledge itself. So nididhyasanam is atma dukkha viyoga. In other words, when we say moksha, moksha from what? Moksha from sufferings caused by anatma. Moksha is not a destination. We already have that infinite ananda. You through viyoga, by removing the sorrow because of the anatma or the samsara, we discover our mokshatvam that we already had. Next slide, sir. So which is what is explained in this particular verse. And where is this suffering taking place in our body? It is at all three layers, starting from the Karana Sharira. Karana Sharira is embedded with ignorance. Avidya is another term for Karana Sharira. So from there itself, avidya, Then, of course, Sukshma and the Sthula Shariras also. So, through this knowledge, through Atma Gnanam, we need to disidentify with these three layers. And to do that, there are two more values which are also emphasized. What are those two important values? Nishchayaha and Anirvedaha. Nishchaya is also called as Shraddha, having the total conviction of the phalam of the Samadhi Abhyasa or the Nididhyasana Abhyasa is extremely important. Just a superficial belief in this knowledge or superficial belief in the Shastras is not going to help. One has to have absolute conviction in the knowledge. One has to have Tivra Mumukshutvam. And Anirvedaha means total commitment and then perseveration without pessimism and diffidence, because when we are in the spiritual path there will be lot of negative thoughts, there will be lot of thoughts which will discourage from continuing, because the same topic which is getting repeated again and again, people will ask why is that I'm not going to make a progress. That is purely because the preparatory qualifications are still not adequate. That's what it means. And there is no problem with the knowledge itself. There is no problem with the Shastras. There is no problem with the Guru. But it is how we identify it. Those two are emphasized in this verse. Next slide, sir. Quickly look at the word by word meaning. So, Vidyattam, one should know that state. Dukkha Samyoga Viyogam, which is the dissociation from the association with the sorrow, association with the Anatma. Yoga Sangnitam, this is to be known as Nididhyasanam or Samadhi. Yoga Saha, Dhyana Yoga leading to that. Yogatvayaha, Yoktavyaha, should be practiced. Nishchayena, with firmness. Anirvinna Chetasa, with undepressed heart and mind. One should know that state which is dissociation from the association with the sorrow to be known as Samadhi. Dhyana Yoga leading to that should be practiced with firm mind and with tireless efforts. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
That was an extensive and very nice explanation of the 23rd verse. And to highlight just a couple of points and also to reinforce, yoga here is Vyogaha. The Jivatma doesn't get associated with Paramatma, but instead of dissociation, can be considered as disassociation. Jivatma gets disassociated from Anatma and the Anatma attributes. So the Anatma Dukkha, which is the problem of samsara, is Jwara. Anatma Dukkha Samyoga is Anujwara. And the Anatma Dukkha Samyoga Viyogaha is Anujwara Nivritti. This Anujwara Nivritti, which is the Dukkha Samyoga Viyogya, is exactly what has been explained in the Panchadashi and the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad question, which our teacher regularly would ask in the previous classes. Kim ichcham kasya kamaya sharira manusam jaret. And this Viyoga in this verse very clearly is an example of Viparita Lakshanaha. The problem is Ahankara and Mahankara. This Mamakara and Ahankara is very difficult to leave, to have Tyaga of that. And that's why Shraddha in the Phala, Nischaya, and perseverance, which is Anirvedaha, is extremely important. What are the problems of this samsara? It is the Anatma pains. Saha Nischyayo Tattva Yogaha Nirvinna Chetasaha. So the Sthula Sharira pains, Sukshma Sharira, mental pains, and the potential pains of the Karana Sharira are all superimposed on I, the Atma, giving rise to Dukkha Samyoga Vyoga. And this counter superimposition or annulment of the superimposition is the important aspect that is highlighted in this verse. To further go on, Ahankara of the body mind and Mahamkara of the port. This has been explained. And this yoga cycle, which is the third time that it is being explained now, is the Yogasya Kartavyata Uchyate. The two types of Nididhyasana. In this chapter, the Samadhi Abhyasa and these values are of extreme importance. May I now request Sri Shivkumar Yadavalamji to explain the 24th verse of the 6th chapter.
Hari Om, Sri Guru Bhyo Namaha. The verse 24. Sankalpa Prabhavan Kamam Tyaktva Sarvan Aseshatah Manasevendriya Gramam Viniyamya Samantatah. The gist of this verse is, having completely given up all desires born out of fancies, one should restrain the group of sense organs from all directions by the mind. From verse 20 to 23, Bhagwan Krishna talked about Dhyana Phalam. Earlier, he has talked about this in the form of Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Next slide, sir. In this verse, Lord Krishna once again goes back and repeats about Dhyana Swarupam to reinforce the understanding. So, what exactly is the practice of meditation? What should we do at the time of meditation? During meditation, first turn the mind away from all worldly thoughts, both with regard to past and future, whether thoughts of family, friends, foe, profession, business conditions, status of our physical body, and so on and on. The Lord says, Kaman Sarvan Tyaktvan. Kama here means our future plans and expectations, our wants, our desires. Normally, we rarely live in the present, as our present is constantly occupied with thoughts of either the future or the past. Only when death approaches, we realize that we have never lived and enjoyed the present, as we have been constantly thinking of either future or past. Therefore, start living in the present. Stop pondering on the future or past without bothering of what will happen or unnecessary fears for at least 20 minutes. But the problem is, I am not able to do. How can I do that? Next slide, sir. Bhagavan says, Sankalpa Prabhavan. When a thought arises in the mind, in the beginning, it is very feeble, just like a ripple on the surface of water, which with the wind turns into a small wave, and continued wind makes it bigger and a bigger wave. Similarly, with our strong and constant kama, krodha, raga, and dvesha, we end up fanning this spark of a feeble thought into a raging fire. Next slide, sir. In the 37th verse of the 3rd chapter, we saw that desires or kama creates a delusion that with the satiation of a desire, I will attain completeness or purnatvam. With this belief, we create desires in our lives to excel in our education, land a high-paying job, build a business empire, family, house, and so on. The power of kama is so strong that it's difficult to get out of its web. When one desire is satiated, it gives birth to greed. When it is not satiated, it gives rise to anger. Constant thinking of either the future or the past can develop into jealousy, which progresses to anger, and finally ends up with depression. In the 62nd verse of the 2nd chapter, Lord said, from anger arises delusion. From delusion results the loss of memory. From loss of memory results the loss of discrimination. Because of the loss of discrimination, he perishes. Therefore, at the seed level itself, divert your mind. However bleak our future may appear, never get depressed, never allow that thought to arise. Sankalpan Prabhavan. Do not dwell on those thoughts and do not encourage any negative thoughts. For if we do that mistake, our mind is not available for any healthy feelings. Next slide, sir. In our recent retreat, the Ratakalpana analogy of Kathopanishad was beautifully explained. You will find it in our channel under Kathopanishad summary. In this Drishtanta analogy, the chariot represents our body, the owner traveling in it as the Jivatma, pathway to the objects of desire, horses to our sense organs, reins to our mind, driver to the intellect. our sense organs are the gateway through which the external world enters our mind and creates kama or desires. So Bhagavan says, Manasa eva indriya gramam viniyamya samantataha. With mind control, with the help of our own mind, withdraw the cluster of sense organs from the external world completely. Now, with control over our sense organs, what is the ultimate gain? Let's understand from our next speaker. Hari Om, Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha, Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you for a nice explanation, Sri Shiv Kumar. The first cycle of the yoga discussion was up to the 16th shloka. The 16th to 23rd was a second cycle of explanation of yoga. And the meditation practice begins from the 23rd verse of this chapter. The understanding that we should now have is the nirvikalpaka samadhi of yoga is probably thoughtlessness, but Vedantic nirvikalpaka samadhi involves a thought. Shankaracharya says in the Bhashyam that tyaktva parityajya, give up. And what should we give up? All the desires of future projections, sarvan, all desires. And also further goes to say it should be without exception, all the expectations should be renounced. Asheshataha nirlepane. And this Vedantic meditation is hence dropping all the dependence that one has on the future anatma and claiming atma as the only reliable thing. This nitya anitya vastu vivekaha in our mind is the viveka yuktena manasa. May I now request Dr. Ashwini to kindly explain the 25th verse of Jnana Yoga.
Thank you, sir. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Shanai Shanai Ruparame Buddhyadriti Grihitaya Atma Samstham Manah Kritva Nakinchidapi Chintayet. The translation is gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. Lord Krishna is talking about Dhyana Swarupa. This is being repeated to indicate the importance of Dhyana. Dhyana Swarupam is dwelling upon the Atma or the Vedantic teaching, which is the primary aspect of Nididhyasana. Next slide, sir. Swami Vidyaranya discusses the Bahiranga and Antaranga sadhanas in Tripti Deepa of Panchadashi. Now, the question that arises in all of us is whether one should follow a particular posture while we dwell upon these teachings. Verse 112 to 122 of Tripti Deepa discusses this elaborately, and we derive what makes Nididhyasanam is not body posture, but is the mental posture alone. When you have no aim, which is Drishta Phalam, the rules are not important. When you aim at something, which is the Adrushta Phalam, the rules are important. Having given this law, Swami Vidyaranya asked the question whether Nididhyasanam is Drushta or Adrushta. Then he answers that Nididhyasanam is for Drishta Phalam, which involves changing the mindset from triangular format to binary format. Is my mind Sakshi Drishtavat or Sakshi Pratyakshavat? So Nididhyasanam is not meant for Punyam, but to change the bhavana. Since it's Drishta Palam, no rules apply. So Nididhyasanam is defined as dwelling on teachings in any manner. Hearing, reading, writing, discussing, or even teaching too. Simply, you keep listening to the word Brahman or Atman, and that we convert to the word I, it becomes Nididhyasanam. This is Samadhi Abhyasa Rupa Nididhyasanam, where Atma Samstam Manaha is required, which can gradually happen. Next slide, sir. Shifting the mind from grossest to the subtlest, both externally and internally, which is a task in itself. So externally, it is a Panchabhuta Vivekaha. You start with Prithvi, then Jalam, Agni, Vayuhu, and then land in Akashaha, which is or the Sat or the isness in the Atma or I. Now, I is the isness in Akasha, which percolates into Vayu, Agni, Apa, Prithvi, thus into the entire creation. The practice of isness in ourselves is open-eyed Atma Dhyanam. Shifting the attention of any object from the Nama Rupa to the isness in that object is the practice of Atma Dhyanam. The next slide, sir. Now, if we see yogic Samadhi Abhyasa and the Vedanta Samadhi Abhyasa, we see certain differentiation. In yogic Samadhi Abhyasa, one has to follow the postures compulsorily, close the eyes, and also eliminate any thought, and also land on the single pointed thought. But whereas in our Vedantic Samadhi Abhyasa, there is no compulsion on posture, not compulsory to close the eyes, need not or one should not eliminate any thought, but then have the thoughts which is centered on the all-pervading Atma. It can be Sadrupa Atma, Chidrupa Atma, Ananda Rupa Atma, Sarvagata Rupa Atma. So, close the eye, dwell upon Chit within, open the eye, dwell upon Sat outside. Turn the Nama Rupa to Sat Chit in Vedanta Samadhi. So tilt your attention within or without. Shift all to Chit within or Sat outside. Convert all your variable into invariable. Dwell upon Mithyatvam of Nama Rupa and their incapacity to affect me. This can be practiced anywhere and at all time. And this is called Vedantic meditation. Now, looking at the Bhashyam for this verse, Shanai Shanai na sahasa uparamet uparitim kuryat. Shanai, sorry, previous slide itself. Shanai is the gradual and na change. To explain this for an example, again, one cannot go to the subtlest Sat from the grossest Prithvi, hence open-eyed meditation was prescribed, where one starts from Prithvi, gradually turns to Jalam, Agni, Vayu, Akasha and Sat. Similarly, in our closed eye meditation, one can go through Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya and Anandamaya. Anandamaya is a silent mind or quietened mind, and turn the attention to the observer of the silence. How do we achieve that? Simply say, I am the observer of that silence. This is called Panchakosha Viveka. Panchabhuta and Panchakosha should be gradual. Uparamet is to quieten the mind. Uparitim kuryat, may one withdraw the mind. Again, the question, Kaya. Kaya, with what? We should all practice the withdrawal, but Kaya, whose or with what help? The answer is Buddhya, intellect, which should be kept intact. Then with the help of what type of intellect? Dhriti Grihitya, intellect endowed with Dhriti, which is equal to Dhairyam. Dhairyam here is Viveka. Discriminative in the form of entertaining a thought. The thought that I, the observer of silence, am different from the silence. I am in and through the silence, aware of the silence, different from silence. Similarly, I am in and through the thought, aware of the thought, different from the thought. This is Dhairyam. Next is Atma Samstam, Atmani Samsthitam. Atma, Atma eva sarvam. Atma Samstam Manah Kritva means make the mind abide in Atma. But according to Vedanta, everything is already abiding in Atma. Because Atma is Karanam and every object is the Karyam, and Karyam cannot abide anywhere outside Karanam. So, mind's abidance in an object must be interpreted as dwelling upon that object. Abiding in Lord is to think of Lord. Abide in Atma means to let the mind think of Atma as revealed in Shastram. Therefore, whatever we have heard during Shravanam, learned from Guru, should be brought to the mind. Hence, in Vedanta, Atma alone is everything. It is Advitiya, secondless. But in Yoga Shastra, Atma is talked about in 25 Tattvams, and Atma is one of the Tattvams. Therefore, Adi Shankaracharya says, Atma eva sarvam, everything is Atma. Na tatah kinchidasti, no second thing which can afford to distract. Atma samstam manah kritva, abidance of mind in Atma, na kinchidapi chintayet, not to think of anything else, which is nothing but Nama Rupa. Yeshaha yogasya paramo vidhi, ultimate instructions of Vedantic meditation. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
That was a very nice explanation, and I think each one of us should revisit these talks again and again to have a clear understanding, because as we did the Bhagavad Gita earlier, and as we do the Bhagavad Gita with the Bhashyam, the talks and the understanding becomes subtler and subtler. To reinforce what Dr. Ashwini has so well brought out, this gradual withdrawal of the mind from the grosser to the subtler is like the Arundhati Darshana Nyaya or the Shakha Chandranaya. And the Panchabhuta and the Panchakosha Dhyanam clearly highlights how we should move from to get to the observer as well as to have an understanding of the Sat. Important point brought out here is the Drishtaphalam. Nididhyasanam is the Drishtaphalam. And we are changing our mindset from the triangular to the binary format. Shankaracharya has very highly and very clearly brought out that Kim Vishishtaya, how do you do this with an intellect? And it is Dhriti Grihitva. And the Anvaya is self-explanatory. Dhriti Grihitya Buddhaya Shanai Shanai Uparamet Manaha Atma Samsthana Ritva Na kinchidapi chintayet. There should be no other thought other than the thought of I, that is the being in the binary format. This similar kind of understanding is there in the Upadesha Saram, Sattaya Hichit Chittaya Aham, and also in the third stotram of the Dakshinamurti. So we have to re-emphasize that Sadrupena Chit, move on, and Chidrupena Aham. So what we see as Jagat and what we see as Namarupa, we have to change over and we have to abide in the Atma itself as explained and revealed in the Shastra. And this Nididhyasanam is not to have a thought like we eliminate the thoughts in Yoga Samadhi, but in Vedantic Samadhi, there is no elimination. That thought has to be a specific thought centered on the all-pervading Atma, as very clearly explained by Dr. Ashwin. May I now request Dr. Colonel, Colonel Vijayan to kindly explain the 26th verse of Dhyana Yoga.
Hari Om, sir. Gurubhyo Namaha. Verse 26. Yato yato nishcharati manahas chanchalam astiram tatastato niyam yaha etad atmaneva vasham nayet. Whenever and wherever the restless and unsteady mind wanders, one should bring it back and continually focus it on the self. Krishna talks about Vedantic meditation or Samadhi. He suggests the process to move away from the triangular format of Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara to the binary format of Atma and Anatma. He wants to develop in each one of us the Brahma Bhava. Recollecting the Ratha Kalpana example of the Kathopanishad will help understand this verse better. It's very natural for the mind to be fickle and unsteady. It is its Swabhava dosha. Such a mind is required for our normal routine functioning. Had it been not so, we would not have been able to drive a car or play a game of tennis. But for Vedantic meditation, we need mind which is free from distractions and alert. However, any anatma thought can bring in distraction. And here it should be our endeavor to free the mind from these distractions and bring it back and anchor it on the self or the Brahman. Next slide, sir. Nishcharati manaha, wandering mind. The mind is subjected to various distractions. It needs to be disciplined and brought under control. Elements causing distractions stroke modifications are Shabda Prapancha, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa Rasa, Gandha. Raga, attachment to profession, possession, memories, family, and own body. Laya, deep sleep or a weary and a tired mind. Stupefaction, an intermediate state of mind caused by powerful tendencies of likes and dislikes. Next slide, sir. Because of these distractions, goes out of the field of meditation. Anatma by itself is not a distraction. It is the anatma satyatvam which is distraction, as it is anti-Vedantic thought. The anatma mithyatvam is Vedantic chintana. So when one looks into anatma as satyam, then it can be said that he is digressing out of the Vedantic thought. Well, how do you differentiate it? The moment a thought generates anxiety, worries, and becomes burdensome, then it is a satyatvam thought. The Brahma Bhava is slowly vanishing and we are coming back to the Jiva Bhava. Next slide, sir. Niyamyaha, restraining the mind. Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, discipline the mind or regulate the mind. Shankaracharya ji defines regulation of mind by saying that use the object of distraction itself as the object of meditation. We know that every object is made of Atma and Anatma. The isness of the object is Sat, and Sat is nothing but Atma. And Anatma is the form of Vyavahara Nama Rupa. To appreciate Sat, one doesn't need to go around searching for object because every object has got the Sat. So understand the truth. I am not the Sakshi located within the body. Know that I am the Adhishtanam Sat in which everything is located or all the Nama Rupas are located. Therefore, as long as one is aware of the mithyatvam of the object, the mind can be restrained. Next slide, please. Next slide, sir. This aspect has been mentioned in the 20th verse of the Drigdrishya Viveka, which says, Asti bhati priyam rupam nama cheta sa panchakam, aditrayam brahma rupam jagat rupam tatodvayam. Existence and consciousness, being all pervading, cannot be physically separated from the world. Again, verse 30 of the same scripture says, Deha abhimane galati vignate paramatmani, yatra yatra manoyati tatra tatra samadhaya. Wherever the mind goes, whatever be the experience, he is in either internal or external samadhi. Every perception is a samadhi. Next slide, please, sir. Atmanev vasham nyayet, controlling the mind. Shankaracharya ji suggests the following for controlling the mind. Firstly, understand that every object is a mixture of two aspects. Secondly, Vyavaharika Nama Rupa component in every object is mithya. Thirdly, Vairagya Bhavam. Any mithya padartham does not deserve raga or dvesha. And fourthly, drop all mamakara and ahankara. Hand over the panch anatma to Vishwarupa Ishvara. Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja. Aham Tva Sarva Papabhyam Mokshasyami Ma Sucha. Hari Om. Thank you, sir.
This is a very important verse and a very well explained thought process, Colonel Saab. So the highlights of this verse that all our thoughts should be on the binary format, and we should never encourage a thought that involves the triangular format, which means we should have only the Atma thought. We should not have any Jagat and all the Jiva thoughts. What does that mean? It means Hetu Garbha Visheshanam Chanjalam Mana Asthiram Manaha. You have to switch over the pattern of the thoughts. All our thoughts that come from what we experience in our body-mind complex and the Jagat outside is essentially based on our vasanas. So the vasana-based thoughts have to be converted to will-based thoughts. Vasham Nayet. And this is the highlight of the explanation that Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya says on how to control the mind. Control of mind here is not control of our thoughts, but control the pattern of our thoughts, move over from the vasanas and move it to the Chidrupa or Satrupa or the Anandarupa or Atmarupa thoughts. So the journey of our whole understanding here is from the Jagat, which we see as Namarupa, we move to Sat and we move to Atma. A very important highlight that came out of this verse is that I am not just the Sakshi. So I am meditating and I feel that I dissociate from my body-mind complex and the Jiva Jagat and say that I am a witness to everything. However, here, the thought process is now getting more into the binary format and say that not only am I not the Sakshi, but I am also the Adhishthanam of this entire Jiva Jagat Ishvara complex. So we understand that like the Kshetrajna, the Atma and the Anatma is the field of Vedantic meditation. And this whole world is just a bunch of thoughts at the Maya level called as Maya Vritti Eva Jagat. In Swapna, Antakarana Vritti and Jiva Vritti is there. And the Maya Vritti and the Ishvara Vritti form the part of the Jagrata Avastha. When this mind goes away from the Anatma Mithyatvam and goes towards Atma Satyatvam, that is Nirgachati, that's the way we should be. However, because of our Swabhava dosha of the Vasanas, we keep moving back to realizing or trying to superimpose the Anatma Mithyatva. So Chit Dhyanam to Sat Dhyanam, Sakshi Dhyanam to Adhisthana Dhyanam, and understanding that I am the Adhishthanam sustaining this entire universe is the open eye Dhyana Sarvatma Bhava or the Sarva Adhisthana Bhava Dhyanam. This is the very important understanding that comes at this time from this verse. If we move to Vyavaharika, which is unpredictable, unsustainable, and uncontrollable, we are into Abhasa Karanam. Highlighting again exactly what Colonel Vijayan said, the mixture of Vyavaharika Namarupa and the Paramarthika Sat. The Vyavaharika Namrupa aspect or component is Mithya, the Namarupa is Abhasi Karanam. The Vairagya Bhava that we develop, understanding that this Mithya does not need Raga Dvesha, understanding that this is the Raju Sarpa example or the shell and the Rajata example, and keeping this Mithyatvam ever in mind, doing away with the Pancha Anatma, doing away with the Namarupa, dropping the Ragadeshwa, dropping the Ahankara, Mamakara is Sarva Dharma Parityajya. May I now request Dr. Sheila to explain the 27th verse of Dhyana Yoga.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The verse goes like this. Prashanta Manasam Henam Yoginam Sukham Uttamam Upaiti Shanta Rajasam Brahma Bhutam Akalmasham. Here, now from now on, that is from this verse and the next verse, Krishna talks about the palam of Nididhyasana. In the next slide, we'll see the meaning of this verse. Uttamam Sukham Upaiti. Uttama Ananda Praptihi is the palam. What is the highest Ananda? We have heard now so much from the last speakers. We'll see it again. Meditators has got two Anandas. During meditation, mind becomes sattvic by avoiding Rajoguna and Tamoguna, that is external world and spleen. This Santa Vritti is considered as ideal state in which Atmananda gets reflected, which is called Pratibimba Ananda or Koshananda. Koshananda, because this experiential pleasure belongs to a mental state called Anandamaya Kosha in the form of Priya, Moda, and Pramodha Rutti. And this is subject to arrival and departure. And it is available only during meditation, not before or after. Swamiji gives a very good example, that is ice cream Ananda, which is present only while eating ice cream, not before or after. So he says not to get carried away by this ecstatic state. It is an obstacle to Vedantic meditation. So what is this Vedantic meditation? It is nothing but the original Bimbananda. It temporarily gets reflected in the mind during meditation and continues even after the experiential pleasure. Bimbananda is not a matter for experience. It is a matter for claiming that I am Atmananda or Swarupa Ananda. The best example given by Swamiji is the reflected face in the mirror you get to see, but the original face will never be experienced. So that original space has to be claimed. Similarly, the claiming of Swarupa Ananda is the purpose of Vedantic meditation. Again, this knowledge, that is, the Vedantic student has already got this knowledge, that is Jnanam, from Guru during Vedantic Shravanam, that I am non-experiential Ananda Swarupa. So meditation does not give knowledge, meditation does not give new experience, does not improve the knowledge, but it is for claiming and reclaiming. Reclaiming in meditation is for remaining, that is removing Viparita Bhavana. I am neither happy, happier, or happiest, but nor unhappy, which all belongs to the mind, but I am happiness all the time. This is what Krishna says as attainment of highest Ananda, that is Uttamam Sukham Upaiti. In the next slide, all the other words in the shloka are the description of meditator, that is Nididhyasana yogi. The first one, Prashanta Manasam, tranquil mind, as we know till now, that not thoughtlessness, not yogic samadhi. It is not chitta vritti nirodha, but it is Vedanta samadhi, that is Mano Buddhi Ahankara Naham Chidananda Rupa Shivoham, as told in Atma Shatkam. I am neither happy nor unhappy, but I am happiness always. This is the thought which should be entertained consistently during Vedantic meditation. The next word, Yoginam, which means the one who practices exclusively, that is Nididhyasana. Shanta Rajasam, whose mind has got reduced Rajoguna. Rajaha means Rajoguna. Shantam means the one that is come down. In Gita Bhashyam, it is said, Shantam Rajasam Prakshina Mohadi Klesha Rajasam iti arthaha. Mohadi Klesha Rajasam, that Rajoguna which expresses in the form of Klesha. Klesha means variety of doshams. In Yoga Shastra, there are Pancha Kleshas, the fivefold defects of mind. They are Avidya, which means ignorance, Asmita, that is Ahankara, Ragadvesha, that is attachment and hatredness, and Abhiniveshaha, which means instinctive Dehabhimana. So Moha Adi, Moha is Avidya, Adi is the Pancha Kleshas. So with Vedantic meditation, all this which belongs to triangular format, that is Jiva Bhava, are negated and one goes to binary format, that is Brahma Bhava. The next word, that is Brahma Bhutam, which means Nitya Muktaha. Brahma Bhutam Jivan Muktam, Brahmaiva Sarvam Iti Evam Nichayavantam Brahma Bhutam. Everything in it, which means it is Nitya Muktaha, everything is Brahma, which is none other than myself, is the conviction. The next word, Akalmasham. Kalmasha means impurity. So one is free from all these impurities. The Shankaracharya in Gita Bhasha says, Akalmasham adharmadi varjitam. Adharma is, that is papam. Adi is punyam. So it is papa punyam mishraha. So papa punyam mishra are of three types, that is sanchita, agami and prarabdha. So the nididhyasana yogi is free from all this. He is na punyam, like it is given in Atma Shatkam as na punyam, na papam, na saukyam, na dukkham, chidananda rupaha shivoham shivoham. I am always happiness itself, that is Ananda Swarupa. So in the next slide, we'll see the conclusion, the benefits of Nididhyasana. The short-term benefits is learning to claim mind nature in the form of Sachidananda Swarupa. The long-term benefit is Jnanam. With this Jnanam gets converted into Nishta, so that even during Vyavahara, this knowledge is available for use to bring good results. So the meditation is the transformation of your thinking process. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Sheila, for a very clear explanation of the 27th verse, explaining that the phalam of Nididhyasanam is the Uttamam Sukham Ananda Upaiti. And that is, of course, the Sattvic mind. And you very clearly brought out the Pratibimba Ananda and the Bimba Ananda. So the highlight is that I must claim that Ananda Atma. And this will continue, this Ananda Atma will continue even when the mind is experiencing dukkha. That is the point. We are in samsara, we are experiencing dukkha at some point of time, but the Ananda Atma continues. What does that mean? You have to drop the notion, and dropping that notion is arriving at Swarupa Ananda. So this Swarupa Ananda Prapti Nama is dropping the idea that I am a Dukkhi, I am a Samsari, I am a Jiva, and I have Prarabdha. All this has to be dropped. That is Swarupa Ananda. Dukkhitva Bhava Nivritti Eva Swarupa Ananda Praptihi. And this has been again highlighted from the 23rd verse. If we go back to that verse, Tam Vidya Dukkha Samyoga Viyoga Ita. Jiva Bhava Nivritti. Triangular format has to be dropped. So what is the other understanding of moksha? It is accepting the temporary pratibimba, learning to claim the permanent bimbananda. So we have the mind, you accept this mind, you use this mind, but don't get the emotional mind to block that thinking intellect. And this is very important and clearly highlighted in this particular verse as well as the next verse, where we claim the non-experiential, please highlight it is non-experiential Swarupa Ananda versus temporary experiential Ananda. Shri Guru Bhyo Namah.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi sir, and all speakers of the day for a wonderful session. Thank you, friends, for your active participation in this session. Coming Friday, we are entering into a new Upanishad called Mandukya Upanishad. Let us all tune in for the first session of Mandukya Upanishad at 6:45 p.m. on Friday, 24th May 2024. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you.